Hello and welcome to this short film to accompany the feature documentary Terry's GI Dad. I'm Liam McCarthy, I'm a historian and broadcaster, and this is the hidden history of American racism here in Leicester during the Second World War. We're starting here in Victoria Park to the south of Leicester city centre, and behind me is a huge slab of local granite which is there to mark a memorial to the 82nd Airborne Division of the US Army. The 82nd were based in Leicester and Leicestershire between February and September 1944 and are rightly praised for their heroism, hence the reason for this memorial here in the park behind me. But they were also responsible for some of the worst race riots that Leicester has ever seen. The Black GIs they fought with were based in a small rural village 11 miles to the northwest of here. Welcome to the small Leicestershire village of Gadsby. Now there are no memorials here and no evidence that Black GIs were ever here, but here they were in the Second World War. We know from the diary of the postmistress Elizabeth Johnson that they arrived on Wednesday the 16th of December 1942, up to 400 of them, which must have been amazing in a village this small. With their big Hollywood smiles, smart uniforms and lots of money, they were paid the same as the white GIs. These black soldiers were really welcomed in the village. They held dances, they looked after the children, they did all sorts of wonderful things. And they were based here at the hall and further up in the village, and in the village of Ashby Folville, about a mile down the road. It was at one of those dances that Terry's mum met his dad. And Terry and one or two other brown babies who were born to the Black GIs and English women are the only evidence that the black troops were ever based in the village of Gadsby. I've come now to Humberston Gate in Leicester, and the building behind me is the Three Cranes Hotel, which was a pub in the 1940s. As you can see, it's now an international shop. But here was the start of the American segregation of Leicester. The landlord of the Three Cranes complained to the police about fighting between black and white GIs. The black GIs had brought white girls to the pub, the white guys didn't like it, and they fought. So the chief constable wrote to the Home Office and said, "Can I segregate Leicester?" And he was told no. But what happened was the Americans bought their own police office and set it up in Leicester, and they officially segregated the city. So black GIs were segregated that way in the city towards some of the poorer areas, and the city centre behind me became a white area. So they got the best dance halls, the best pubs. A recipe for disaster. What really set the scene for the American riots of 1944 was the arrival in Leicestershire of the all-white 82nd Airborne. They'd come from heavy fighting around Naples in Italy, and they came here to train for D-Day. That meant there were nearly 50 white American Army and Air Force military units in Leicestershire, around 12 to 15,000 men, and around 400 black GIs in 6 units in Gadsby and Ashby Folville. The diary of General James Gavin, who became the commanding officer of the 82nd, shows how worried he was about the potential for riots. This is what he wrote. "Several near riots in town last night. English people, especially the lower classes, do not discriminate in any way. In fact, they prefer the company of coloured troops. American whites resent very much seeing a white woman in the company of a coloured soldier. Here, they almost see them in bed with them." General Gavin was right to be worried. I'm on Granby Street in Leicester, and the building behind me is Burdett House, which in the 1940s was the American Red Cross Club. It was a home from home for GIs. It had 270 beds, so if they got a little bit drunk, they could sleep off their hangovers, they could come and get a snack. But unusually, this Red Cross Club wasn't segregated, which meant that black GIs and white GIs, even though there was a bit of friction, could both enjoy its facilities. On the night of the 28th of February 1944, the 82nd Airborne, on one of their first nights out in Leicester, came here to the Red Cross Club, found black GIs here, and fought to eject them. And a battle took out. The Red Cross Club was absolutely wrecked, and indeed a few weeks later a new black Red Cross Club was opened elsewhere in the city. As part of that, dozens of GIs were stabbed, and to make things worse, the rumour was that one of the 82nd GIs from Quorn in Leicestershire had been murdered. He hadn't been, but the rumour was rife, and the next night the commanding officer of the 82nd in Quorn, a guy called Herbert Batchelor, gave his men a free pass to come into Leicester to get their revenge with the Black GIs. And it was here in Humberston Gate that this revenge mission really took shape. There was a running pitched battle outside here, behind me, the Palais and the Three Canes Hotel further down that way. And there were stabbings, shootings, and if you can imagine a cordon of British police one end of the street and the other end of the street, while the Americans fought it out between them. But it got worse. A group of the Black GIs based at Gadsby went back to base, got into the arms store, stole some rifles, stole a truck, drove back into town for a shootout. Mayhem hit the streets of Leicester. Just behind me is a big expanse of tarmac where American lorries used to park up when they brought the GIs in for their night's entertainment, or in this case, revenge. Now there are reports of further down behind me, where there was a hotel called the Bell Hotel, of 2 black soldiers being lynched and left hanging from lampposts. And those are from memoirs of American soldiers in the 82nd Airborne. Now we don't know if it happened. The GIs themselves believed it happened. There are no records of it in the American military archives or in the police reports, but doesn't mean it didn't happen. In May 1944 there was another major riot in Leicester. It began to the east of us, outside a pub called the Dixie Arms, which was a black pub in the segregated city. Now outside the pub, 2 white military policemen were stabbed and murdered by Black GIs, who then ran into town, and there was a running battle right the way through town. And here at the Corn Exchange in Leicester, outside the marketplace, I've spoken to an elderly lady who's now nearly 100 years old, who remembers going dancing with her white American boyfriend. And when they arrived here at the Corn Exchange, she saw 2 Black GIs thrown out of the upstairs windows, and says they landed on the floor and were dead. And it's a memory that still haunts her to this day. Those same reports show that around 50 soldiers were charged with offences such as possessing concealed weapons, or was subject to a military tribunal in the city in late May 1944, but there are no reports of court-martials or other deaths. Our last chance of finding out what really happened in 1944 and how violent it was across the city will probably come when the official police records for the city of Leicester are opened in the National Archives in 2029. Well, we finish our tour back here in Gadsby and outside the village school that Terry attended from when he was 5 years old, and he told me where he began to feel different to all the other local children, and so began his search for his story, which he tells in the moving documentary Terry's GI Dad. If you want to find out more about Terry and some of the estimated 2,000 other children of Black GIs in Britain, you could read the book by Professor Lucy Bland called Britain's Brown Babies. That's all from me, Liam McCarthy. I hope to return in another film to launch a book called A War Within a War about the African American experience in Britain in the Second World War, but that's for another day. Goodbye.